clip contains strong language and has therefore been rated 18 plus by the YouTube and ECCA. Viewer discretion is advised. YouTube and ECCA and the makers of this video do not condone the usage of foul language in any situation or circumstance. The explicit content shown within this clip may also be disturbing viewing for mature adults. All people in and involved with this video are innocent until proven guilty.
Alright, we back on the Fix from New York. I'm one half of your host, Cash Trust. The brother Z Dot is here with us today. And to jump right into it, we have an amazing, spectacular guest today. This guy, he runs 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many, I've lost count, but several social media platforms that do nothing but spread knowledge, constitutional awareness, and explanation from individuals' constitutional rights. A lot of intellectual things. Zay Bassler, thank you for being here with us today. The admin of the Free Flow Project and Police of Police.
Really?
What's up, fellas? Good to be here with you guys.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you.
So yeah, like we said, we want to jump right into social media censorship. We know that you've been affected by that directly. Cash is also, he's still banned from Instagram for how many weeks now at this point? Do you know?
It's been about a month and a half.
It's been about a month and a half. He's innocent, by the way. He did nothing wrong. But Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like truth, apparently.
Yeah, it's him and Adam Mosseri, who's originally from New York City.
Then he should know better.
And moved to the Silicon Valley, I think it was, in California.
Silicon Valley is where they're doing all that censorship from.
Mm-hmm.
And
good luck appealing that to Cash, because it's probably not going to happen, man. Hate to be a disappointment and a downer pessimist, but yeah, we've had a lot of experience in that realm, unfortunately, and I think all but one of our appeals over the years have actually failed us. So, cross your fingers, but
it's just, it's terrible.
Take the red pill on it, correct?
There really needs to be a better system in place for that kind of stuff. There is a social media platform called Minds, and they have a jury peer review system. So basically, anytime a piece of questionable content gets flagged, they have peers actually review the content, and then people within I don't know if they're necessarily connected to or not, but basically people who are on Minds, who are users, I think it's actually called a user jury system, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Those people will basically do a vote if the content violates policy or not. And it seems way more effective than actually having algorithms and AI try to do it when, we've seen time and time again, people get caught in the crossfire with social media censorship who haven't actually done anything wrong. It's just the algorithm, catches one keyword that's maybe used sarcastically or in jest, and next thing you know, they have a ban. And a lot of times, these people are just normies. They're not even activists or truthers or people trying to spread information like ourselves.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's just simply because it doesn't, like you said, it's the algorithm. It finds one word that might not fit their narrative, whatever that may be. And in social media jail for quite some time, if not forever, until you make a new email and everything.
What you brought up, that's dope. Nobody would have never known until they come across this information that there could be a process of jury involved to deem whether your material was, a violation of policy or not, which mine definitely was. And for those asking who don't know, summarize it real quick. I was on the live the day after the election, just explaining how the election could have been handled better, what would improve Trump's chances of winning, even though myself, along with many other libertarians, voted Joe Jorgensen, and that's a whole nother conversation. But when I got to the topic about fathers' rights, I was like, another thing about him, he didn't really come for anything for fathers' rights. Right there, I just see a bar pop up, and it was just like, oh crap, what the hell? So then it started going in and out on me, and I was like, oh, are people still able to see? And then it just told me right there, oh, you have been deemed to be conducting hate speech. So
It's 1984.
Yeah, so we're gonna temporarily deactivate you for the time being. A PO at, and they gave me a hyperlink. I did it. Then they started ping ponging me 30 days, 14 days, 30 days, 14 days. I'm like, so
How so often are you targeted, Mr. Bassler? Because you post a lot of truth, and I'm sure they are at your neck every single day, if not every single post at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it feels that way. You know, it's easy to come to that conclusion and not actually have the proof because there is a lot of censorship. You know, so I usually try to default towards these things happening by algorithms and AI, not necessarily like one of Mark Zuckerberg's truth arbiters sitting behind the scenes and watching every post I make. Of course, that has happened in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As we had mentioned, in October 2018, on the same day, both Facebook and Twitter removed our pages and accounts, resulting in a net loss of nearly 6 million fans. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Facebook and Twitter are both
they're both terrible
on our organization.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the majority of the times that I deal with Facebook fuckery, as I like to call it, it's probably due to just algorithms, and unfortunately we're dealing with an absentee landlord here, with Facebook. They're never around. There's never a single individual to help you when you do hit these kind of roadblocks. You try to appeal, you jump through the hoops, you send the messages to these help centers that they ask or they tell you to, and you don't get a response. You don't get any type of information back. You don't a lot of times even know what you did wrong. I'm actually kind of surprised. Instagram is a different beast, of course, but I'm actually kind of surprised, Cash, that they told you what your post violated, because on Facebook now, it's actually part of their policy to not tell you. They just tell you that you violated community standards somehow, and it's a big guessing game. You're supposed to, know their community standards inside and out so well that you're just not supposed to violate them, I guess. And of course, that's a challenge in itself because they're constantly changing, right?
Exactly. Yep. They update every few months to every year.
You look at the Bible, you look at the book of world history, and they're nowhere compared to the size of Facebook community standards. I mean, it's a book this big.
Yeah.
It keeps growing by the day, and that's not to mention that they're also selectively enforcing some of these things because, sometimes people on the left, they get away with these rules of not, coming under the censorship and selective enforcement of Facebook. So it is a big it's a big clusterfuck, I guess you could say, and it's a big mystery to a lot of people like ourselves who use social media platforms to either run their businesses or even just trying to get the word out and make a name for themselves.
Just using their right to freedom of speech, as we so have in America.
Exactly.
Except on the internet, apparently.
What we always do when we're conversing within urban United States, because, that's our demographic, we let them know your favorite celebrities, artists, rappers, all these people within public figure, standards, that they have a massive network and a bunch of fans, all that. We let them know the reason that they're there is because they've been able to exercise their First Amendment. They've been able to express themselves, to articulate things, and if they were ever to be restrained, and we saw this a lot during the 80s and 90s, they would fight back about it. NWA fought back about it. Early New York rappers fought back about it. Run DMC fought back about it. So that's the corresponding example. Like, if they could censor you at any moment, are you willing to tolerate that and just accept it for what it is, especially knowing that within the foundation of this nation, you have the tool at your availability, the Constitution itself, to combat against that. Because if you're going to be silenced, you have no life, no liberty, no pursuit of happiness. You're not able to, partake in things that you want to get across in order to get things done.
So it's definitely easy to address the problem, which we all know that there are problems. And here on the Fix for New York, we like to have solutions as well. So what would you see? Do you have any potential solutions? What have you thought of to move forward from this? Do we leave Facebook and Twitter completely to another platform? Is there a fight we can fight on their own platforms? What is the answer in your opinion?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So, if I may just touch on what you were just talking about,
Sure.
Cash. I think you're right. I think ultimately you're
Thank
spot
you.
on with that analysis.
Thank you.
However, the argument goes from a lot of our friends on the right, a lot of conservatives, that Facebook is actually a private company. So the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our First Amendment, doesn't apply because we're not dealing with the state. We're dealing with a private company. But here's a disclaimer that we've covered numerous times. We try to also put it out there because ultimately Facebook isn't a private entity. It masquerades as a private entity, but they also have partnered with numerous think tanks and that are connected to the government. I could go into depth on this if you guys want to talk about that. They
Yeah, of
also have a
course.
revolving door with the government. They have a bunch of high execs who've come in from the government and higher positions. Once again, we could get into that as well. So there's just a lot of crossover and overlap with Facebook and the government to the point where it feels like a lot of the policies that have been written for Facebook have been done so by these government insiders. And so it definitely kind of muddies the water. It makes the conversation a little bit more difficult because, yeah, in real life, the way it's supposed to be anyway, we're supposed to have these First Amendment rights that, can't be taken away from us. But by proxy, because government is using the private institution of Facebook and Twitter, they can, and I think that's what the danger is. So to answer your question, Zach, yeah, we actually have thought about this. I specifically feel like I have a pretty good grasp on social media. I use 15 different social media platforms on a daily basis.
Wow.
I kind of wanted to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. And we also in 2019 had a summit for different journalists, influencers, page owners.
Was that the Common Ground Summit?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
That was the alternative media Common Ground Summit that we had in Houston. And we basically had around 50 people in real life at this event and about another 75 online through a Zoom call. And we all sat around and kind of put our heads together to try to figure out what the most effective strategy would be. And yes, the answer is ultimately to leave Facebook and Twitter. And it doesn't mean that you can't continue using those products, but it means that we need to shift to these other alternative media, social media platforms that are more free speech friendly, that aren't going to be censoring us, that we don't have to walk on eggshells to express our opinions. And the problem is, once you start getting into that world of censorship, you become your own worst enemy. You start self-censoring it before you even make the posts. You start worrying that, hey, maybe this information is a little too controversial. Hey, maybe this is going to get flagged by Facebook. Maybe I shouldn't post that. And I think, in my opinion, that is the death of free speech. That's when the American people start self-censoring and questioning if they should share something that's controversial. That's even more dangerous than the Facebook fact checkers. So it is important that we get on social media platforms like Minds, like MeWe, like Telegram. I can name a few others that I think are some top contenders.
I've heard a lot of people talking about Parler. What's your view on that?
Parler has a lot of momentum right now. It's very heavily right-wing leaning, although that doesn't mean it's completely right-wing leaning. We have both the Free Thought Project and Police the Police on Parler, and generally the right supports the police, as you guys probably know. A lot of Thin Blue Line supporters,
Oh God,
All Lives Matter supporters. And you would think on Parler that there would be nothing but those types of people, but I'm actually surprised that our Police the Police page gets quite a bit of support and very little hate comments.
That's
in
good.
Response.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Parler's definitely got a lot of momentum. My issue, well, not my issue. I mean, I'd go anywhere that is not Facebook or Twitter. I do have a MeWe account. I don't have Minds. I'll look into Minds. I have MeWe and I have Parler, but truthfully, the apps and their what they offer is just not as much as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which is why people are so weary, in my opinion, to leave their main social medias for them. So they've got some catching up to do, I guess. But also the issue is that they can't really compete with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, who's got all the money to have all the new tech engineers and whoever developing software to keep it up and running as it should. It's the future right now, and they're just so far ahead of anything else that possibly could compete, which is a problem. But
Like, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Cash.
No, what I was gonna add to what you said was that goes to show if they're gonna use their gigantic sized platforms, that's just a position they hold right now. Hey, we saw the Golden State Warriors as an example go from a team in last place horribly, to winning a championship. The New York Mets eventually made it to another World Series, you know. So those tables could always turn, but in the meanwhile, when we see these big companies withholding certain information and just trying to block it out, that's why I'll flip it on those who support that. Like, what if the shoe was on the other foot? And also, if you're always about looking at two sides of the story to create the final conclusion, why are they trying to keep you from hearing the other side? So, with the momentum, how you mentioned earlier, we could capitalize and share these platforms as long as we hold these platforms to a standard of being transparent, honest, and allowing full blown free speech. That momentum we could easily give competition. It would take like a good 5-10 years for the quantity, but it'd be solid competition, pardon me, and people could ping pong through that as well. Like, all right, if I'm looking for mainstream stuff, I'm gonna look here. If I'm looking for more in depth, I'm gonna look over here. Similar to Fox News and
CNN
WikiLeaks.
or WikiLeaks, yeah. Shout out to Julian Assange, by the way.
Yeah. My bad. I'll disguise some things to avoid algorithms on certain things.
Yeah, and some little good news regarding Mr. Assange today. But yeah, I totally agree. I do think it's going to be more compartmentalized within the public, kind of like our news sources are now. I do see that being the future and being part of just our everyday reality because, yeah, the way Facebook's acting right now, they really are trying to eliminate any anti-establishment information. If you're not um, if you're not basically repeating the narratives that they've approved, then yeah, they will make your life miserable. And I don't think it's completely a bad idea to get off those sites altogether. I do think it's important that we still continue to plant seeds.
Yeah, the ping pong. Exactly.
Mainstream. Yeah, exactly. More of these mainstream types of at least for the work that I'm trying to do. I'm not just trying to preach to the choir. I'm not just trying to have an echo chamber. Like I am trying to plant seeds. anarchist type of information. It was along the same lines as information I cared about, but it was just a little bit askew. It wasn't quite resonating with me. But one of the writers who was working with this website happened to be this dude named Matt Agorist. And both him and I realized we were way more libertarian anarchist than the guy who we were working for. And plus, the guy we were working for was kind of a dick. In fact, he still kind of owes me money. So yeah, if you happen to see this by any chance, Demon, pay up, motherfucker.
I got one just for that. I got one just.
We ended up parting ways with him, and realizing we could create a website doing our own type of information with the focus on the topics that we wanted to cover. So in 2013, the Free Thought Project was born, and it's not the most glamorous story, but that's more or less how it started.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, everyone starts somewhere, and you've definitely surpassed many people who have tried to go down that same route as yourself, or anybody who's been on the truth-seeking route on social media.
It turned out to be a good decision too. You know, this is pre-Black Lives Matter. This was pre-Ferguson with Mike Brown. I mean, this was, you know, right before this whole huge wave of police accountability that's kind of, you know, came to a climax this year. So it was a great idea. It was a great decision to get involved with this. Unfortunately, because big tech has entered the picture and become so dominant, it's become harder and harder to make a living, to make money doing this. So it's certainly challenging, and I certainly wish the best of luck to people just getting into the game like yourselves, because the market is a bit saturated right now.
It is. It absolutely is. It's scary where we're headed. People didn't read enough George Orwell growing up or at all in their lives to realize that we're basically there right now. And it's weird. You know, we have thought police, literally thought police, fact checking, censoring, deleting what they don't like, and it's happening right now in real life. It's not a book anymore. So.
Yeah. The great thing about it was how you said your turning point was in 2012, and pardon about earlier, by the way, the Ronald Reagan Bush thing was because a lot of Californian natives, they said that was their whole experience of both sides, like from seeing that shift go the other way. Your turning point came 2012. So right now we can capture so many people because we've come to make it easier to comprehend. You get me? While the time being, thank God, we have the technology at our disposal with the rapid networks to get the word out quick. It's just about spreading it as quick as possible. Earlier, we brought up that what would be like another good solution along with getting the word out. And would you agree that legislation, how you said the turning point, and other people as well, legislation has to be changed. People have to take action and bring in the best candidates into office to make the moves, changing these legislations from, you know, decriminalizing marijuana to censorship on social media platforms and overall internet. You know, like would you agree that that's another action that has to obviously be taken as well? Because you see a lot of people outside of like Trump, for example, they're just throwing the towel. Oh, it's over for politics, and they're just like, no, you have Ron Paul's, you have Thomas Macy's, Rand Paul's, you know, just to name a few, Amash, Larry Sharp, so many to name. So just wanted, you know, your stamp on that as well.
Sure. So I support, and this is somewhat controversial within the liberty movement, surprisingly, but I support a multi-pronged approach, meaning I support libertarians trying to make change through politics. I support anarchist libertarians making change through sharing information and winning hearts and minds. And I also support libertarians trying to make change with boots on the ground, with like protests and civil disobedience and actions like that. So I personally don't have an issue with people trying to work within the system. Now, is that the only solution? No, I don't believe so. I think that looking at government as being the only means to change is very dangerous. In fact, I think it's very short-sighted and could actually do more harm than good. So while I appreciate there's my friends out there who do try to work, trying to try to change laws, try to end laws like the drug war, for instance, and even people like Christina Tobin with Free and Equal Elections, who just hosted the third party debate in December, or excuse me, was it October? Jesus, months are flying by. But either way, I think all that stuff needs to be happen. Will I personally invest that time and energy towards that? No, I don't want to work within the system. I don't believe it to be a very effective use of my time and energy. However, I do support people who do it, because I do think that we're at a point in time where we need to fight back. Whether it be writing a poem, writing a song, anti-establishment song, whatever it may be, getting on the internet, sharing your opinion, creating a website, creating a Facebook page, working on legislation, protesting, all these things at this point need to be done.
Yeah, a whole melting pot of action from all different sides.
There's a huge momentum and wave coming at us of tyranny, and we need to do something to fight back. And too many people are unfortunately ignorant, apathetic, and just not interested. I guess that's apathy.
Yeah, there's so many distractions in the world now, whether it's a new PS5 or whatever else came out, new iPhones, everything going on is just a distraction, that people are genuinely comfortable, and they don't even realize that there are issues that need to be addressed, and not just addressed, but fixed as well. But there's so many distractions, whether it's sports, music, whatever it may be. Everyone's got their own little vice. Not all of it is drugs. Some people are just into the basketball games going on, wherever it may be, So they're just content with what's going on in their world. They have their job, and they'll never look to fix anything. However, at that same time, everything is turning worse every moment.
And that's how we make it all bridge together. Because some people, they'll look at politics and completely want to disregard it, consider it for people that they would consider nerds, or a full-blown failure. In all avenues of life, there's an influence in politics, along with how you're basically detailingly explaining a mass awakening of people realizing what's truly going on and moving as a unit via we the people. So along with that, with these celebrities that are out here that are constantly being idolized and all that, I ask them all the time, are you still being arrested or oppressed for anything that they talk about? Yes or no? Are you able to defend yourself willingly against any threat, as long as you didn't initiate the action of hostility? Are you able to engage, participate, or indulge in any extracurricular activity you want to conduct, as long as, again, you're not conducting any type of harm or oppression to another individual, party, entity, etc.? Are you able to have transparency when it comes to anything from your water to your health access, like the whole medical field, the nutrition field, and all that? If you even have to question any of these things, you got to come to the conclusion, all right, what's going on? How can I fix it? If your vehicle has like a tire losing air, you either got to pump that tire up with air or change the tire, but you have to take the action in fixing it. Find out what the problem is and what's going to solve it.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. There has been, and I think in some ways politics has become intentionally confusing, intentionally vague to the average person, because and look, I could admit this, before 2011, before I really started to kind of refine and hone in my understanding of politics, I just kind of thought it was all just a big mess, like I didn't understand what was going on. Because I didn't understand it, because it was so convoluted, I didn't really care, but I realized
the vocabulary that they use, all these confusing terms.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it is confusing and complex, and it's taken years just to kind of understand the bigger picture. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that's done intentionally, just to turn people off, but I think it's safe to say, in seeing all the police violence that we've seen, that things are continually escalating and getting worse within this country, so it is time that we stand up and speak out. And actually, one of my very first Facebook pages was called "Get Involved, You Live Here." I mean, literally, get involved, you fucking live here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
How are you not gonna get involved?
unfortunately, there is a downside to that because people are easily manipulated, and like we've seen with the Trump campaign, a lot of times people take allegiance to certain public figures, and they think they're doing good. They think that they're supporting this virtuous person, but unfortunately, they're so tunnel vision, they become blinded by their own, by the truth.
Yes.
I'm guilty of it. My first presidential election, I voted for Trump because I thought he was anti-establishment and going to drain the swamp as he said he was going to do. It was a great campaign. He won, but he didn't do anything, so I did not vote for him second time around. I voted Libertarian this past election.
Yeah, we'll give him the credit because again, that idolization, it can be tricky. People always have to keep a clear mind. You could call it the Jedi's perspective. Always keep a clear mind, keep emotions out, because some people, their image alone and what their potential could be will ignite the emotion in people. Like, yeah, let's get it. It'll create that rally, but it's just like always continue the vetting, always maintain an observative eye and hold accountable as time goes on. Because with Trump, we'll give him credit. Lowered taxes for big corporations, what they were able to do to an extent.
Yeah.
What they were able to do in a return. And for those watching that y'all talk about that, I hold Trump accountable. Y'all seeing it from very different voices.
Just so you know, Mr. Bassler, I've never seen Cash on this show talk positively about Donald Trump. So this is a first.
I have before. It's been it's been a few times, that it probably blew past us or whatever, but the videos are up there. Y'all catch it.
It's in the archives.
In the archives, exactly. But we'll give him credit. All right, he did minimal impactful, but minimally impactful things. Like, I could make you a sandwich, and you'll be like, wow, that was a great sandwich he gave me 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, and it's just like, yo, that was a great sandwich, but if nothing came after that, that's all it was. So he did that. He continued and completed what, ironically enough, and y'all can look this up because I looked it up as well, and the stamps on it. I forgot the exact title of the act, but this act to remove firearm regulations from the UN, the United Nations, and restore its sovereignty to the United States. The weapons, like the standard weaponry, whatever could be deemed eligible for a
he's
nation
done
to
some
have.
good, but he definitely didn't do everything
Yeah,
he
he
said
didn't
he was
do
going
bad.
to do.
Do y'all really want to? I could take it down there right now, but I think
Maybe next time.
yeah, because we were having a minor technical issue earlier, and I think they probably heard some stuff, and they were like, "Wait a minute, look at these guys, and listen to what they're talking about." Boom, but we'll keep it on the lighter note. We'll give him his credit. Like, he's gotten us out of some bad trade deals that will in turn maintain a lot of money within the United States. Ironically enough, there's this big combat going on right now because the stock market's doing well, cryptocurrencies are doing well, but then they're talking about economic collapse and all that. What I see is, an economic collapse, because when you have a lot of small businesses basically being censored, because that's a form of censorship, being forced to shut down.
Yeah, and we both have it bad out here in New York and out there in California for yourself with restaurant bans at this point. I'm not sure what it's like out there, but we don't have any indoor dining in New York City whatsoever.
Yeah, so when these things are occurring, it's just like, hello, like more immediate action has to be taken against it.
What are the mandates like out there for dining, any sort of anything for that point?
Yeah,
it's all closed down right now, unfortunately. The worst part about that is a lot of business owners actually paid for the infrastructure. They're already hurting. They're already unable to pay for their employees, and they decided to pay for the infrastructure for these outdoor tents and set up parking lots with tables and whatnot. And of course, a few weeks later, California, Gavin Newsom decides that they can't even dine outdoors anymore. So it's a total mess out here, just like most places. Unfortunately, it's way more left leaning. So not only do people support the mandates? They support the politicians who put them in place.
Yeah, people out here love Andrew Cuomo, our governor, for whatever reason. I still don't understand why, and they love. It doesn't make sense, and I also love De Blasio. A lot of people actually, that's our mayor. People are starting to not like him, but for the longest time, they were so grateful for what he's doing with COVID and everything. I just don't get it. Shutting down the economy doesn't make a virus go away.
I'll explain it real simple because I watched it almost every single day on the news at a certain area to keep it anonymous and all that, but very valid, and the videos are on YouTube. In the beginning, they were saying, "Oh, don't take it too serious. This whole is not that big of a deal, and you should be getting more involved with people of Asian culture." So they threw that, ironically enough,
You guys
right
had Nancy
next to
Pelosi
Trump.
in San Francisco talking
De
about going down
Blasio
to
in Chinatown
Yeah.
as well. So they started with that. What happened? People didn't really pay attention. They only saw, oh, look, they're getting involved with other ethnicities. They're not racist. Oh, that's just orange man being racist. What happened after that? When things started closing down, they said, oh, we don't think things should be closing down, but we'll let it happen and all that. After that, they kept delaying any type of quote unquote immediate actions. They just kept saying, we're gonna observe, we're gonna observe. In the meantime, Orange Man was saying, let's take action, and they were spinning it on him because it was literally an intellectual function of chess. They would spin it on Trump by saying he's exaggerating because he's being racist and trying to spread fear mongering. What happens after that? Cuomo calmly says that they need all these hospital beds and all that. Mind you, oh man, give me 2 seconds. Like that algorithm vanishes because you go on these not that, but like when I see like certain movements, it's just like
Yeah.
All right, so 3, 2, 1. All right, so then when Cuomo calmly started asking for more hospital beds and stuff like that, Trump censorship, Cuomo said, oh, that's an exaggeration. And you had a lot of independent, social media channels that were showing, hey, these hospitals are not seeing much action.
They were empty.
They were making TikTok videos in hospitals of nurses and doctors.
That wasn't a good look.
No, not at all. I mean, people are supposedly dying left and right, and they're dancing around on Chinese apps.
If you're gonna tell me that is that lethal, but then within moments later you're gonna tell me that I just need to relax, you're gonna ping pong it, and then these areas that are war zones are no longer war zones. How did we get the ill people out of there so rapidly? We have to question that. It's like if somebody steals from your house and defends themselves. Oh, I didn't steal what you had inside of the safe, inside of the closet on the left side, upstairs in the attic. How the F did you know that it was it? So these people, if you really pay attention, I just simplified it for any, individual who doesn't engage in politics too much and only catches a glimpse of the news from time to time. They ping-ponged it. Again, it was intellectual chessing.
Well, both sides play with each other. They pretend to be against each other, but they have the same common goal, essentially, as
both sides, ironically enough, they would throw the blame on Trump.
So, Mr. Bassler, it's quite evident based off your page that you're not a fan of this new COVID vaccine.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about that next.
Yeah.
Why are you, I mean, I'm sure we know why you're against it, but let's hear it from yourself personally. Why are you against this vaccine?
Sure. Yeah, I'll preface by saying I'm not a health expert.
Yeah.
I'm
Disclaimer.
not a doctor. I'm not trying to tell you what you should do and do with your own, what you should do and not do with your own life. However, it doesn't make much sense to support any product that has zero liability. And unfortunately, all vaccines, including the COVID vaccine, if you have any type of negative adverse effects, you can't sue any of the companies who've created these vaccines. There's been law put into place, 1986, vaccine law. I can't remember the specific name for it.
Yes, I know what
But
you're talking about.
sure,
I forgot the name as well.
that to me is a flag would be the amount of time it took. You know, it was fast tracked,
Mm-hmm.
and even with the top scientists and just trust experts. You know, even with that mentality, generally vaccines take 2 to 4 years to go through the whole array of testing to
Mm-hmm.
be approved
At least at
and
that point.
brought to market. So, right. I mean, yeah, there's various stages, there's various time lengths depending on the vaccine, but anywhere from about 2 to 4 years. The COVID vaccine was produced in a matter of 9 months. So that's the red flag number 2. Red flag number 3. These people have told us so many different things over the past 11 months. The first they told us to not wear masks, then they told us to wear masks. They've told us a whole number of lies, which turned out was either inaccurate or misleading. It's nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody wants to admit that the lockdowns aren't working, and people look
Empty
at this.
hospitals,
People look at this vaccine as the solution and the cure-all.
Yeah.
And even the mainstream media, even these companies tell us that this isn't a cure-all. You still need to wear a mask. They're still saying to keep social distance
Mm-hmm.
away from other people after you get the vaccine. Of course, that doesn't even go into effect until about 10 days after you have the vaccine.
Exactly.
And it's not fully in effect until you have the second dose. So there's just a lot of problems with it. And, we've also seen the negative health effects. There's Bell palsy. There's at least, I think, 6 people now who've contracted the Bell palsy, and they say, well, that just lasts a couple weeks. It's no big deal.
for those who don't know, real quick, because I know people are asked later, can you explain to them what the Bell palsy is briefly? Important to interrupt you just so.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's just I don't know exactly how to scientifically explain the reaction to the vaccine, but more or less, it kind of makes your face.
It's
look
kind of
like
paralysis to an extent, right?
To an extent. I guess they say it's just temporary.
Yeah. But still, that's
but,
nobody wants
guess,
that.
No, nobody wants that, and I guess maybe that's why they're suggesting to continue wearing the mask afterward. Because everybody walking around.
That's funny.
Looking like they're special needs or something.
Yeah.
But there's just way too many red flags, and I have a general rule not to trust anything the government tells
Exactly.
me. So you start with that rule and you work backwards, and you'll be okay.
No, you said it perfectly. I mean, the fact that there's no liability, the hypocrisy to me is the number one reason I don't like it. The left loves the vaccine. The right does not seem to be so on board with it, which is kind of surprising to me, but whatever, right?
Well, go ahead and just Google Pfizer's criminal history.
Yes, exactly.
Do yourself that favor.
And if you like history, the Tuskegee experiment is a great example as to why to not trust any sort of health care from the government whatsoever as well.
Well, they're in bed with these big pharmaceutical companies, same thing with mainstream media, same thing with Facebook. Some of these think tanks that Facebook's paired up with are paired up with big pharma. So, it's just a big mess. And I think anybody who's a critical thinker should always question anything the mainstream media or the politicians and government are telling you. That's step one.
Absolutely.
You just mindlessly believe what they're saying. If you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to reevaluate. It's a Mark Twain quote, but I think it's very telling because, unfortunately, like we were saying maybe about 20 minutes ago, there's just too much ignorance and apathy, and by default, people think, well, geez, I'm not an expert on these subjects. Like these people are, maybe I should trust them. And by doing so, they don't ever take into account, some of these other consequences that are attached to these decisions. So, yeah, that's just a short version, I guess, of why
no,
I
that's
don't
perfect.
support,
Very
the
well
COVID
said.
vaccine, or even the pharmaceutical industry in general. There still is a huge epidemic of pharmaceutical drugs killing people.
Yep.
Right
Yeah.
now. And that's kind of been put on the back burner.
Opioids.
Yeah. What oxycodone is? They just are starting a lawsuit for oxycodone
Against
deaths
the
or
Sackler
something.
family.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so recent, and we just trust them right away for the newest medicine that they provide us with.
Also, what I tend to see, shout out to Dr. Sebi, God bless him. Um, they always try to tarnish the name of natural,
Holistic health,
yeah,
anything like that.
holistic health. Thank you. That was a great alley, by the way. Holistic health, herbal medication, anything that could come from the earth,
From nature.
yeah, from
essentially.
nature, alternative medicines.
Well, you're a vegetarian. You did say that, right?
Yes, sir.
I am still an omnivore, but I do, take my supplements, my juices and everything, and I believe that anything that comes from the earth does have some sort of benefit on the human body, or it's
Mhm.
not a benefit, something bad as well. But nature can provide to be very useful for health as well.
Yeah.
And in China, they beat COVID with no vaccine whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that they just use like vitamin C overdosages on COVID patients, and that's how they beat it. And vitamin
Well,
C is
that
just
and a lot of tyranny.
a lot of tyranny as well. That too. I'm not giving China any credit, by the way. It's just
Sure.
me pointing out that we didn't need a vaccine to be better.
True.
Exactly.
Well, that was the push. Cash was just giving the breakdown of the timeline, and I believe that was the push. That was the well, just one more month. We just need to get through this one more month, and everybody was kind of pushing that narrative until the vaccine finally came, and it's like, oh well, now the vaccine's here, but you still have to do all these things.
And don't
You still
forget,
need to
there's a
get your
new
second
strain
dose.
now. There's a new COVID strain.
Yeah, out of
And
nowhere.
you might need it again in next year, which of course lines the pockets of these politicians and big pharma. So they've set themselves up a beautiful racket, and it's easy to see it once you start looking. But unfortunately, the apathy within society doesn't have people looking. They just
Yep.
continue to trust the experts, and that's what the mainstream tells them to do.
Hmm.
Whether it be mainstream celebrities, mainstream media. Um, it's just all around pressure from the mainstream
Hmm.
to conform to these policies, and you got to look out for number one. Obviously, I'm not purely altruistic. Like, I'm out here trying to look out for my fellow man as well. But before you do that, like, hey, you got to look out for number one. You got to think about what's best for yourself, and
Mhm.
just following the herd is not what's best for yourself.
No, not at all.
Ironically enough, you know the old saying, evil will always reveal itself sooner or later. Ironically enough, people who have been paying attention from the left, along with those who haven't but are into nutrition, was actually big in the entertainment industry now, is going vegan or vegetarian, like anti-animal cruelty. Biden just brought somebody as part of his administration who was a former Monsanto,
Yeah.
a former, I don't know if chair member or CEO, but
Yeah,
he had
he
a
was,
high rank.
He's known as the Monsanto man, I think, and he's the reason for lots of bad things that Monsanto did, which the government allowed, and he just put him as the head of environmental something or other. I don't want to say environmental protection, but he's involved in the Biden administration with environmentalism. So that just shows.
These people, they're all here talking about, oh, we have to be more nutritional, more environment friendly and all that. So pay attention to what the majority of those who lean in that direction, that demographic, there are good people in that as well, just so they could be acknowledged. He just brought somebody about. That's like one of us teaming up with a valid Nazi who still carried the hate to this day.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, that's who you're partnering with?
Monsanto has done lots of damage.
Heavy damage, agricultural damage, contributed to death of insects.
Death of people. Their products have caused cancer. It's been scientifically proven.
Yeah, so people who are just gonna blindly say no, this one's better than that one without doing their reviews and not realizing, even though now they are starting to realize, because again, the mask has been removed because look who he brought on board to his team. But honestly,
to a certain extent, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I would also suggest that mentality also applies to Kamala Harris and the whole police accountability,
marijuana, police accountability.
Yes, exactly.
Movement, and unfortunately, this is just a symptom of identity politics.
Yeah, and there's good people in
and
Black Lives Matter and Antifa, shout them out. By the way, I'm just saying,
sure.
No,
but the problem is that they continue to support these politicians who will tell them what they want to hear during the campaign trail. And look, after Biden, president-elect, has already been nominated, guess what? 60 days in now, Black Lives Matter hasn't heard a word.
They've been posting that too. I remember the night that Biden was elected.
Once again, they were just used, they're political pawns. And unfortunately, this is exactly what all politicians do. And, the problem is that people continue to believe it. People continue to support these politicians. They don't think twice. Obama was right there as well. Obama gave us promise after promise. We'll label GMOs. We'll end the Iraq war. We will do X, Y, and Z. Guess how many of those he accomplished?
None. He kept
Zero.
He kept saying, "I'm gonna make you guys the lasagna," and never got to it.
When there's a continuity from one president to the next since 9/11, all following the same policies, continuing to rewrite the NDAA, the Patriot Act. No.
Something's wrong there.
Don't support any of these fucking people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Their teeth, just like the Biden administration, they're bringing in, just like the Obama administration, they're going to fill their cabinet with more of the establishment. If you think that they're going to be any different from the establishment and what they've already shown us to do, Obama dropped 100,000 bombs in 8 years. 100,000
within the Middle
bombs.
East.
And that includes on funerals, on weddings, on school buses.
Wow.
This is serious. And people don't want to acknowledge that. Those are your tax dollars going towards those bombs, killing innocent children.
Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
fucking people.
It's terrible.
Of people being dumb enough to continue supporting them.
Weren't 90% of those deaths civilians?
No.
We need
Thank
that.
you.
That's what
we
want.
need that because honestly, people love to be in there. They don't think. They don't try to analyze what's going on. Again, who you bring on your team. What if you're a rich man in a neighborhood, right? And you move to a neighborhood and you're the richest guy there, and the people you decide to surround yourself with and have hanging out on your block, whatever, in your household, are a bunch of criminals, robbers, etc. You're gonna be seen like, if not deemed guilty, very questionable, because everybody's entitled to their due process. But who you surround yourself with, that has to be questioned. People now, like I said, since they're revealing themselves, they're seeing more of that appear. And at the same time, when things are explained to them without, again, the involvement of and this constant idol worship of these guys who never stick up for them for things that they could be arrested about.
Yeah.
Little by little, the tides are turning. And again, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, what did they do with the left? They pandered to their... And then when it came time for them to keep up with their promises, have Biden and Harris met up with these organizations, these entities, ever since winning? So allegedly, don't flag us, allegedly winning the election.
Nothing.
You can't even go to Dave & Buster's right now. And these people always talking about that they're outgoing into nature and all that. Oh, you want to be outside, enjoying yourself freely. And then they were talking about preserving the animals. They don't want to be throwing away garbage. Masks have contributed to a massive accumulation of garbage. Come on, people, wake up.
Cash has got those samples on lock.
Yeah.
I throw the entertainment into it as well, because, like the shows that reside in the entertainment industry, they make everything come together to captivate the viewers.
Sure. No, that's actually a great point. It's something that I've always suggested for new content creators, is to focus on the infotainment side of things.
Infotainment.
Information, entertainment. You got to have a combination of both. That's how you're going to reach people. I think, Cash, you touched on a very important point, and I think both of you guys are very intelligent. I've really appreciated this conversation with you guys, and I only have another few minutes here before I have to go.
No problem. Let it all out, because you're the man. Sure. This is all about you today, and thank you so much.
I don't have too much to speak on here, but I do think it is important to recognize that people do get emotionally caught up in these types of subjects. And it's easy because the mainstream media panders to those emotions. They're constantly trying to cater to those emotions for selective outrage. However, we need to have a more logical approach.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say logical, that doesn't always mean it has to be rigid calculations and intellectual
You can't come
You know,
just so
it's-
raw at the people, that you want to
Right.
bring aboard.
But there has to be integrity involved, and
Yes.
what I call intellectual integrity, because when somebody does call you out in your team, your side, your political side of the aisle, a lot of times, and I've spent enough time on social media to know that this is a fact. The majority of the time, you get a knee-jerk reaction from somebody who automatically defaults to insults or fallacies, or will just rage quit and
Yes.
block you. You know, so there's never going to be a conversation in this country until people have the intellectual integrity enough to actually admit when they're wrong. And not only admit when they're wrong, but take a look at what is actually moral and what's correct. What's the most effective pragmatic position to take on these things?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, in American politics, the majority of the population bases their decisions off emotions. And until that changes, nothing is really going to change.
Emotions don't conduct those oil changes.
I almost believe that it's more realistic to completely abandon the entire system than it is to try to reform it through incremental reform, through actually trying to get politicians voted in who we think are the right people for these positions, because ultimately power corrupts, and it doesn't matter who we put into these positions. Would you get an oil change on a rental car?
No.
Me personally, no.
So why would
Unless completely necessary, and I'll hold it,
Sure.
We'll keep
But
the
yeah,
receipt.
no, yo, keep the receipt, yeah.
Why would these politicians have any incentive to try to better the institution of government? They don't. They treat it as a rental car. They're just using it until the wheels fall off, until the American people can kind of finally break out of their slumber and realize they're being manipulated, they're being used. We're having our tax dollars extracted from us for every goddamn thing under the sun, whether it be a consensual transaction between two people, or even property taxes on the quote land that you own. Spoiler alert, you don't own the land. The government owns the land.
Yep.
You rent from them.
Yep.
Everything under the sun is based off of these taxes. And like I was just saying a few minutes ago, guess where those taxes go? To all the most undesirable parts of society.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that people don't want. All the things that people wouldn't voluntarily pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Like the drug war. Like these overseas endless wars that have had thousands. I mean, there's 1 million people who have died in the Iraq war. And that's an old stat.
God bless.
To me, it's not. We can't reform this. I know you guys don't necessarily want to hear that. You're a bit new into your libertarian journey, which I appreciate. You guys, honestly, you're an inspiration. When we were talking about earlier in this conversation, people getting involved, people doing whatever they can to speak to their own community, to their own neighborhoods, to their own demographic. You guys said you're focusing on the urban. You're focusing on people who are within your community. That's beautiful, man. That's exactly what you should be doing. Because look, libertarians aren't just these overweight neckbeard people who live in their parents' basement. For everybody. And principles like the non-aggression principle should apply universally as an ethic. And that's not something that should be controversial. That's not something that the left or the right should have a problem with. Look, non-aggression principle. That means I'm not going to initiate aggression upon you.
How we said earlier, the guilty party is the initiator.
In any way is beyond me. But yet we still have people on the left making fun of libertarians. We still have people on the right thinking that libertarians are just a joke.
Yep.
Guess what, guys? Libertarianism is the only morally consistent ideology out there.
Thank you.
Not only that, it's the most pragmatic.
Yes, it is.
And people have taxes taken from them, and those taxes go to this institution of government. Government has zero incentive to ever improve, to ever be accountable, and to ever be efficient or effective.
Even the cat agrees.
The market, guys. The market is the answer.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yes, my cat's reminding me it's time to jump off here.
Mr. Bassler, thank you so much for your time today. We are huge fans of yours. We look up to you. We'd love to have you back on if you're interested again sometime in the future.
Word.
Please follow us. Follow the Free Thought Project. Follow at Police to Police as well, and follow the Fix for New York on Instagram.
To
All your
add-
social medias.
Yeah.
Thank you
To-
so much, Mr. Bassler.
And to add to that, before we go, I one person I do advocate for that I would recommend you check out. De Blasio terms out this year, 2021, here in New York City. We have a candidate, Stacy Pressman. I would recommend checking her out. I would even recommend if you wanted to conduct an Instagram live with her, and I'm pretty sure you'll like what she has, in policy.
Yeah,
And
she's
we-
running for mayor of New York in 2021. She's a
Mhm.
libertarian. She's pro animal. She wants to do away with what I don't know the correct term. when they're killing
Unnecessary
animal
spending,
shelters.
animal
Yeah.
cruelty, animal displacement,
Yes,
along with being, agriculturalist
and pro 2A as well.
and pro 2A. You restore the Second Amendment in New York City, kaboom. And she's endorsed by Larry Sharp. So,
That as well.
Sure.
So
Well, with everything I just said, I also wanted to just make clear that I do support, people who are libertarians, people who are trying to run
thank
for
you,
office,
thank you.
trying to do things. So, it's just my personal beliefs and position has kind of moved past from that. But,
Absolutely.
That's perfectly fine.
I think it's great that you guys are supporting and promoting her, and I keep doing what you guys are doing. And yeah, hit me up. We'll stay in contact. And we'll
Thank
do
you
this
so
thing.
Thank
much.
you so much.
really appreciate you. Have a great day.
Word.
All right, fellas. You too.
Take
This
care.
has been the Fix for New York, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we out.
All right, fellas. That was fun, man. Thank you.